Hey Giant Bomb, this is Rad Devin, and I'm here to show you something I've been getting into the last couple of weeks, board gaming. And I know everybody has played board games, but these are sort of different. They're not the board games you find on the shelves at the department stores. They're a little bit different. Most of you guys are probably familiar with them, or at least some of them, or at least you know they exist, but I wanted to show off a few that I've had a lot of fun with in the last couple of weeks, and something that's sort of been keeping me away from video games in recent weeks. This is Pandemic, a game in which you and your buddies try to stop the spread of a few diseases using cards. This is Lost Cities. It's strictly a card game in which you set out on a series of expeditions trying to uncover lost cities. Then we have Dominion, in which you build a card deck which represents your dominion, and the person with the largest dominion at the end wins. But it's not quite as straightforward as it sounds. The largest dominion is not necessarily the largest deck, but I'll go more into detail on that later. And this is Arkham Horror. It's sort of it's a board game, but it's really similar to a tabletop role-playing game, but a lot more structured, and I'll go more into that as well. Okay, I'll start by opening up Pandemic to show you the contents and show you sort of what you're getting into. Have the instructions. And this is the board. It folds out. It's actually a world map. And several key cities are highlighted, and those are the cities in which the diseases may spread. You have these little wooden cubes in 4 different colors, representing the 4 different diseases that can spread around the map. And then you have some pawns that will represent your character. At the beginning of each game, you'll randomly select a character from these roll cards, and each one has special abilities. Like you've got the operations expert, who can build a research station in his current city for 1 action. Researcher may give player a card from your hand for 1 action per card, so that makes it easier for you to trade cards. And here's a scientist. You need only 4 cards of the same color to discover a cure, whereas most characters would need 5. So each one has a unique ability. None of them are particularly overpowered in comparison to the others. So when you start out the game, you'll randomly pick some cities, and those cities will be infected, so you'll place cubes on them to show that they're infected. And your job is to try to find cures for each of the 4 diseases. And once you've done that, you win the game. It's a fully cooperative game. There's no competitive way to play this game. Either you and your friends will win or you will lose. It's a lot of fun. It's a pretty simple game to learn and play. I enjoy it quite a bit. The next game I have is Lost Cities, and it is a card game. It's very simple to play. Here is the instruction booklet. 2 pages, that's it. It's very easy to learn. In fact, I'll probably just go through the mechanics over the course of this video. You have this little board that you lay out. You'll have 2 players, 1 on each side of the board, and each of these squares represents one of the 5 expeditions that you can go on through the course of the game. You have these cards. They're large format cards, and they have beautiful illustrations. They're really nice cards. And each one, you'll notice, has either a number or a handshake at the top. the numbers represent how far you have proceeded into the expedition. So a 10 is the highest, that means you're all the way into the expedition, and then a 2 is the lowest, so that's at the very beginning. You'll shuffle these cards, deal out 8 to each player, and then play begins. And what you can do is you can lay down a card for any one of these expeditions, and I'm not sure if I mentioned they're color coded to match the cards' colors. So you can lay down a card, and you have to play cards in order. You don't necessarily have to play consecutive cards. What that means is I can start out playing a 2 here on this expedition, and then my next card could be a 4, but then once I've played the 2 and the 4, I can't go back and play the 3, so I have to play in order. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to exceed with your numbers the cost of the expedition, which is 20. So if I had a 2, a 4, an 8, a 9, and a 10, that'd be 10 and 9 is 19, and 8 is 27, and then 4 and 2, that would be 33. So I've exceeded the cost of the expedition by 13. So I have a score of 13 for that expedition. The handshakes give you multipliers. So if I play a handshake, and those have to be played at the beginning. So if I play a handshake here, it will multiply by 2, whatever my final score is, even if the score is negative. So if you don't have enough to if you're not going to have enough to exceed 20, you don't want to start an expedition, or else you'll have to pay the cost of 20. So if you only get 2 points, then you're going to be down 18 points for that expedition. And you just play until all the cards are drawn out of the draw pile, and at that point the game's over. It's pretty quick, and you can actually play a lot of games consecutively, and it's really a lot of fun. You just total up the scores at the end, and whoever has the most wins. This is probably my favorite of the 4. This is Dominion. It is also a card game. Has no board whatsoever. It's a little bit deeper than Lost Cities, so the manual is a little bit thicker. Still manageable. You have a few different kinds of cards. You have treasure cards, which come in the form of copper. Each of those are worth 1, and then you also have silver, which are worth 2 each, and gold, which are worth 3. That's what you use to buy other cards, and you buy cards for your deck from the supply. And the supply is composed of these cards. These are victory cards. That's what you'll actually use to win the game. This is a province, and then you also have duchies, which are worth 3 victory points, and you have estates, which are worth 1 victory point. Start out the game with a deck composed of 3 estates and 7 copper cards. You'll shuffle those and draw out 5, and that's your starting hand. And then you can use the coppers in your starting hand to buy any other cards. So you may notice, for instance, here on the estate card, you have a cost of 2 in the bottom left hand corner. So you can buy another estate card for 2 coppers. That'll give you an extra victory point. You also you'll have cards like these in the supply. These are kingdom cards, and they have special abilities. This is really where the game gets interesting. Like here's a witch, for example. She's an attack card. She allows the player who plays her to draw 2 extra cards, and also gives the other players a curse card, and each curse card subtracts a victory point. So those can really be nasty at the end of the game. So you go through the game. Each turn you'll have an opportunity to buy a card and play a card, and you build your deck in that way, and then by the end of the game you're trying to have the most victory points. But the catch is the victory points don't do anything for you while you're playing, so you kind of have to be careful as to when you start really buying up victory points. because if you buy too early, then your hands are going to be made of mostly victory points and you won't really have anything that you can do. Here's another example of a kingdom card. This is the throne room. Choose an action card in your hand and play it twice. So that lets you double the action of one other action card. Here's an action card. This is a festival. It gives you 2 additional actions. So if you have more action cards in your hand, you can play 2 more of those than you would normally. Normally you would only play 1. It gives you an additional buy. You would normally only have 1 of those a turn. And it gives you 2 more copper pieces to spend. And a lot of the cards play off of each other. There are 25 different kingdom cards that you can use, but you only use 10 per game. So, and they have a means for you to randomize them so that each game you can choose a different 10 cards. And it's really neat to try to figure out which cards are going to play off one another. I played a game recently where I had a bureaucrat that essentially allowed me to take a silver for free, and then I used him with that throne room I showed you earlier. So I doubled him, so I was getting, every turn I had the throne room and the bureaucrat, I was able to get 2 silver in a given turn. That one's a little bit hard to grasp, but once you start playing it, it really starts to flow well. And this is Arkham Horror. Honestly, it's probably my least favorite. It takes a really long time to play and a long time to set up, and you'll see why when I open it up. These are some flow charts that we printed up. These are 4-page front and back flow charts that tell you the flow of the turn, and those were actually tremendously helpful. The instruction booklet is much thicker than the others. It is about 24 pages long. Tells you everything you need to know. It has a big board. I'm not really going to open that and show it, but I will show all the pieces. You've got stamina markers, you've got sanity markers, we've got these gate pieces. You've got markers for each of the characters, and you'll pick a different character every game. You have monsters that you'll have to play out on the board, and you'll eventually have to fight, and there are tons of those. This bag is full of those. These are all sort of little one-off markers. There's about 1 of each of those, and they're all for various things. These are clue markers. These mark your skills on your character sheet, money, and then there are about 100 different kinds of, not literally 100, but there are a lot of different kinds of cards that go with this game. There are these little cards, and these are all different sorts, so these will be separated into different stacks when you have the game actually set up. And then you have gate cards. These determine what happens when you're in other realms. And then you have these are encounters for all the different areas in the game that you may visit. And then you have these mythos cards, and those are played once every turn, and those sort of escalate the game, make things get a little bit worse all the time. It's interesting, and I really love the theme of this game. I like the Cthulhu mythos. I think that's a really interesting, just an interesting theme for a game. But like I said, it takes a long time to set up and a long time to play. So hit me up in the comments if you guys play any of these board games, or if you play any others and have any recommendations, suggestions. I'd love to hear those. I've kind of been looking into some others. My wife is really interested in Munchkin. I think we might try that. We've got a new game shop downtown, not far from our house, and we've been hanging out there some. They have a lot of gamers in on the weekends. They sit around and play all sorts of things all day. I'm actually about to get into a Pathfinder campaign that they're going to have on Wednesday nights. I'm pretty excited about that. I've never really played an RPG before, but I've always sort of wanted to. So let me know what kind of unplugged gaming you do in the comments, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.